Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is April, and for today's video I'm using a new microphone, so I'm kind of hoping that the audio quality sounds good and sounds better than my usual videos. However, I'm hoping that there's no grainy noise in the background because sometimes that happens whenever I use a different microphone. I was going to make this into a tea talk, however, I'm drinking Dunkin' Donuts today. I'm having their chai latte, so if you want to try their vanilla chai, I personally really love it, but I'm not making it into a tea talk. I really wanted to talk about my thoughts on the J-Lo and Shakira Super Bowl halftime performance today. So that's what we're going to talk about. If I keep looking this way, you guys know I have my laptop right here with all of my notes, so just bear with me while sometimes I don't make eye contact with the camera. If you guys didn't see, J-Lo and Shakira both performed last night at the Super Bowl halftime show. If you've ever watched the Super Bowl halftime shows in the past, you know that they can be very risky shows for vulnerable and unprepared eyes. I went on social media after the performance was done, and I just saw people absolutely tearing the performance apart. There's now a major debate going on all across social media about whether or not this performance was appropriate for television at all. I have so many thoughts on the entire thing, and I just really wanted to spark conversation here just to see where everyone's minds were at with something like this. So here were my initial thoughts. They are definitely two very beautiful and talented women. They both are stunning, they both know how to dance, they both know how to sing, they know how to put on a good show, they're very energetic. I wrote that it was definitely entertaining. I loved hearing their songs, I loved their music. The whole vibe was very energetic and powerful, and I thought it was very, very Miami. This performance specifically, in my opinion, was definitely immodest. It was very sexy and provocative and all of those types of things. But I thought it was a very entertaining show. Here is what I shared on social media yesterday. I'm going to read it for you word for word, that way you guys know exactly what I wrote. I wrote, 7 days ago, many of us were saying, be kind, love others, don't judge, forgive, etc., because you don't know when you will have the chance to do it again because of a terrible helicopter tragedy, referring to the helicopter crash in which 9 people were killed, including Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gianna Bryant, if you don't know what I'm talking about. Today, many of us are now judging and ripping apart 2 performers for their style of outfits and dancing, acting superior and righteous. Feel free to rip me apart for this post, but where is the consistency in this logic? P.S. You are not forced to watch the Super Bowl halftime show, and you do have the chance to look away and lead by a different example if you choose. So that was my post. A lot of support, a lot of backlash. I totally get both sides of the spectrum, and I just kind of wanted to share my overall thoughts since making that post. So here is my issue, and I guess this really stands for both ends of the spectrum and not just one. I think almost all of it is hypocritical. We all tend to be a little bit hypocritical when it comes to things like this, like myself included, and I kind of want to share where I was coming from with that. So immediately I went on to Twitter because I don't know, Twitter's like the easiest place to see something. Like when you're watching something live, Twitter's just the easiest place to go and read those tweets. So I came into the Catholic Church April 20th of last year at Easter Vigil, so I follow a lot of Catholics on Twitter, and I love my faith so much. The best thing in my life. However, I do follow a lot of Catholic people, and a lot of these people were making very judgmental posts. These are people, and not just these Catholic people, but other people in general, post a lot about loving people and kindness and everything about the right way to be. But then they were all slamming these women for their performance and for their outfits and the way that they were dancing. And a lot of people also felt little girls who watched this show should have strong women to look up to. And then people had also brought up, I'm reading certain posts on here. People had brought up, somebody brought up a very good point, how you see these celebrities and other people sharing how they want their bodies respected while they're grinding up on other men, spreading their legs, etc. And then you have the other end of the spectrum where people are like, we live in a free world, we should be able to do what we want, women shouldn't be slut-shamed, they're very sexy, and people are just jealous. And then a lot of people are saying it's a race issue, that people are racist against Latinas, and it was just a whole race thing. So I have so many thoughts. So I kind of just wanted to run through those little points and just kind of then get your thoughts on it. My first point, the thing that I guess bothered me the most was that it seems, and this comes from both ends of the spectrum, it seems as though we act like love and kindness is more of a trend to follow because everyone else is doing it for that one day, rather than holding it as a consistent standard for ourselves to live like that. I noticed this a lot. Like I had noticed this when the helicopter crash had happened. You know, everybody was posting the same things, and it was all the same things. Hug your kids, everything that I had mentioned before. Don't judge, make sure you forgive, blah, 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 which is all great. And I remember this also happening the day after 9/11. I remember that very clearly. If you're old enough to remember, you may remember this too. You know, on September 12th, 2001, it was suddenly like the world had totally changed. Everyone was very kind and loving and just wanted to be there to help each other and all of that. And then it's like a day or two goes by, and this is what happens, and everyone becomes like judgmental again, or then everybody starts posting the same things. It's like we all have to kind of repeat what the other person is saying because we think that that's what's going to, I don't know if it's because we think that that's what's going to make us accepted and included, or if we think we sound smart. I don't know why we do it, but it just seems to be something that is always done. So it seems like more of a trend to follow rather than a true, genuine act of kindness and love when that kindness and love is shown. That bothered me a lot coming from a lot of people because a lot of the people that I follow, you know, they preach all of this stuff about kindness and love, and yet they were the first ones to go attacking these women. And for a lot of these people, this was coming from these people live a very devout life, a very pious life as far as making sure that they're attending church all the time and they're, fulfilling their sacraments, doing all those types of things. However, when it came to putting it into practice, it was like it all turned off. It was very, very bizarre to me. I didn't quite understand it. And even from the other end of the spectrum too. So that's kind of like how I felt about that. My second point was that, a lot of people were saying that there are little girls watching the show, and I get it. And, the Super Bowl is a family-friendly event, and I understand that too because it's a football game. I get it. I get that people watch football. It's not just adult men who watch football. I totally, completely get that. However, the Super Bowl halftime show, to me, at least, maybe we don't want to see it this way, but I think if we're going to live in this world, you kind of have to adjust in some ways and realize that football and the halftime show are two almost entirely different entities. I mean, they might literally be different entities. I don't even know. They might actually be that way. You can't go into something believing that like just because it's okay that, little kids watch football doesn't necessarily mean that it's okay for them to watch the halftime show. And I feel like at this point, while I think it would be great if everybody could watch it, and I agree with that point, and we wish that it can all be this utopian kind of situation here, I also think that I'm not going to sit here and pretend like that's going to happen. So if there are little kids in the room or women, or if I'm sitting with my parents or whatever, and you don't want something like that playing around these people, at this point to turn it off. I mean, we're no strangers to the Super Bowl halftime show unless this is something new for you, in which case I feel bad. But at this point, I feel as a society as a whole, we're not strangers to what the Super Bowl halftime show is. We're not strangers to the way that concerts are put on anymore. I mean, we watch these awards shows all the time, and we see the way people are dressing, the things that they're doing on stage. So it's really no secret as to what's going to go on. So also, there were a few points that were brought up by a few different people that especially these young girls should have, these strong women to look up to as role models. I'm not flipping on the Super Bowl halftime show to go find myself a strong woman role model. Not saying J-Lo and Shakira aren't role models in their own rights, but what I'm saying is that's not where I'm looking. I'm not looking at that show for that reason. That's why we have people like Melinda Gates, Candace Owens, Elizabeth Smart, Kate Middleton, Oprah. We have women across the globe, with your own family members. Hopefully, if that's possible, look to your church or your teachers, whoever, if you can. That's why you have those other women. Not everyone is meant to be everything to everyone. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, someone can be a great singer, but that doesn't necessarily make them a great role model, or someone could be a great role model, that doesn't necessarily make them a great singer. You know what I mean? Like, it's not everyone gets to play every single role, and while I think sometimes we wish that everyone could play every single role, it's just not reasonable. It's not reality. It's just not the truth. So we need to kind of open our eyes as viewers and consumers and spectators to say, okay, now I know that this is what goes on. What am I going to do with this information? I'm not going to sit here and pretend like this is how it's going to be just because this is how I think it should be. I'm going to say this is how it is, and this is what I'm going to do with that information, knowing how it is. So that's my opinion on that. My third point, there's a very extreme superiority complex and inferiority complex at play here from both ends of the spectrum. A lot of people are acting very self-righteous and just ripping these women apart and like, oh, they're dressing so immodestly, I would never do that, and blah, blah, blah. Like, first off, I'm going to be honest with you right now. I haven't lived the most modest life, and do I wish I have? Of course I do. However, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I'm perfect, because I'm not. So, you know, he who cast the first stone. Like, let's chill out for a second and realize that we were not all perfect, and that's that. I posted a quote today that I think was kind of like relevant to this. I'll read it to you right now. It says, "The devil flatters us that we are very righteous when we are feeding on the faults of others." I think this is really true, because I think this is such a trap that we fall into as people, is like, we put ourselves on this like kind of pedestal because we think that we're better than someone. It's like, really, we're just different. We're not really better, we're just different. Everybody sins, just everybody sins differently. So, you know, not saying it's okay, because it's not okay, but I think to judge is not okay. And then there's this inferiority complex. This is going to be a little bit touchy for a lot of people, and I know that this is a very, very, very risky thing for me to say, but I think that the people who don't have the superiority complex also have the inferiority complex. And this is not everybody, but this is, I've noticed some people when I went on Twitter today, they feel that everything is automatically an attack. It's automatically racist. It's like they try to shut out somebody's argument. The way that people try to shut down people's arguments is to shut down the conversation altogether, not to compromise, not to listen, not to do anything, but to play victim and say that it's just racist. I'm not saying there aren't racist people in the world. I'm not blind to that. What I'm saying is that not everything is racist, and not everyone who has this view is racist. Some people can genuinely dislike the immodest aspect of this show. And I know that some people are like, well, a bunch of white people have done it before. Not saying they haven't. I'm not saying that there is no racism going on. What I am saying, though, is that to play that immediately without even having the conversation does make it seem like you have an inferiority complex, and that's your way of kind of winning the conversation, is by shutting it down altogether. Like, open up your ears first and don't take everything as a personal attack first. Sometimes the other side, both sides, if you take a look at the other side, they just don't know how to communicate in the way that you're adjusted to yet. One side can be more abrasive, one side wants to be more tolerant, and we have this very different way of communicating. And that doesn't always mean that the other side is necessarily mean. It just means that they communicate a little bit differently. I think there's a big superiority and inferiority complex going on there on both sides of the spectrum. And I think that that's really super harmful in trying to come to a mutual agreement on anything. With that said, my last point really was that I also don't personally agree. This is a personal viewpoint and more opinionated, I guess, than most of this video. I don't agree with the idea that everything needs to be tolerated, because then you wind up living in a lawless world. Things become very barbaric and uncivilized, and that's not a way to live either. You know, if we want to live and move in a flow and have a sort of pattern and be able to live with all of our differences in the world, there needs to be some sort of compromise here. And I don't think necessarily that accepting everything is okay. I don't think also you should accept nothing. I think that there is a middle ground everywhere. So that's kind of like my point here. So I can see where people argue something like this. I totally see both ends of it. But I just really wanted to open up the point of the dialogue here, because I think that instead of sitting here and either slamming the women or slamming each other for feeling a certain way about it, I think it's all ridiculous. Like, I think everybody kind of just got to chill out for a second and take a moment and realize that this is truly a moment where you can actually internally reflect on the things that we do and say and see where they're really coming from. You know, are we hypocritical and inconsistent with our logic? And are we having these complex issues that are coming from a place of pride and entitlement? And I think only after we sit there and really think about those things can we make a real just assessment on what's really at play here. And I think sometimes if we think about these things before we go posting on social media or go ranting or whatever, myself included, I think it could be really helpful because then I think we're going to be open to other people's opinions. We're going to have better conversations. We're going to be learning, which everybody wants to learn, and I hope at least everyone wants to learn. Everyone wants their voices heard. I think that's the best way that we can like live in a society with people who have different opinions and different values maybe than we do. So that's kind of my thought on that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. If you guys haven't watched my last video, I made a video talking about the whole Prince Harry and Meghan Markle situation, which you guys can go and click right here and go watch that. And be sure to give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, because I make videos like this whenever my heart desires. I hope that this made sense. I hope that this wasn't too offensive. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.